Hello, everybody. This is Sunday Jamz with Joe, Shak and Sam, and we are here for my album of Album Club, my second album, and that is Ween, the Mollusk. So, let's jam. So, Ween is a alternative / arty, experimentally rock group that started in the 1980s by childhood friends Aaron Freeman and Mickey Melchiondo, otherwise better known as Dean and Gene Ween. And they started as a duo, then expanded into a bigger group, made a bunch of albums with lots of influences. They've got loads of eclectic sounds going on, and this was their 6th album and one of their 2 most acclaimed albums, along with Quebec.
I feel like this album starts incredibly strong.
Okay.
Right from the get-go with I'm Dancing in the Show Tonight, which is one of my first highlights.
Okay. Interesting.
I feel like this track in particular is one of the more offbeat, just kind of weird tracks on the album. And I think it's just really ballsy of them to put this kind of like musical show tune at the beginning of the album. But I also feel that this track perfectly kind of encapsulates what the listener is in for. You are in for this very weird, for the most part, upbeat sounding album.
I think it's quite a theatrical beginning as well, and I think that's fitting because it's quite a theatrical album. Like, I can imagine this album being turned into a play. Even though there isn't that much continuity in the story, there's something really theatre-esque about a lot of these songs and the lyrics, and even the way it's structured, the way the songs are structured, there is a kind of, I'll get into it later when we start talking about the other songs, but there's a kind of how I imagine different phases in a play. This album kind of has a similar flow.
I think I know exactly where you're going to go with that.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I too enjoy I'm Dancing in the Show Tonight as an opener. I like how it's so it's kind of very optimistic, and I think it's based on some kind of old nursery rhyme type thing.
Yeah, it's a reworked track of something.
Yeah, it's some kind of Christmassy thing, I think. So yeah, it intentionally has that playfulness. And like you say, it is reflective of the rest of the album because they always have this kind of tone of maybe being somewhat tongue-in-cheek a bit, they definitely feel like a band that wants to have fun. Like, even in some of the more serious moments, they're just able to play with their sound in a quite fun way, I think. And this is kind of like one of the most clear examples of that.
Yeah.
What do you think I thought of this song?
I wouldn't think it offended you, but I wouldn't think it was a highlight either.
It doesn't offend me, no, but it's definitely so far from being a highlight.
Oh man, that's a shame. But to go on from saying this album starts strong, the first kind of proper track that we get, the Mollusk, is easily one of the best tracks on the album in my opinion.
The Mollusk is one of my favorite songs of all time ever, from any band, any music genre. I love the Mollusk in so many ways, for so many reasons. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
I much prefer the Mollusk to Dancing in the Show Tonight. It's I like the less dumb moments. There's a certain dumb vocal that pops up on a few songs,
right?
That is really off-putting to me. And on Dancing in the Show Tonight, where the pitch of the vocals keeps changing, and there's this silly ass trombone and shit.
Oh, but I love that. It's just
I really like that.
It's just so endearing and playful, and just.
I also love how many different voices they kind of conjure between the two of them on this album in terms of characters and stuff.
Yeah.
I think the voices play a big part of that.
But that same low voice comes up in it's in Ocean Man.
You know the vocals of the elder character in this. So there's these 2 characters of the young boy and the guy that asks the boy if he talks about the Trinity.
Yeah.
I thought the vocals of the elder character kind of sounded a bit like Jack Black. In that I felt,
I know what you mean.
Yeah, this definitely kind of influenced. I think Ween would have probably just influenced Tenacious D in general if this album is like a lot of their other albums.
I think Ween are definitely a kind of very influential and they're one of the few bands in quote unquote comedy rock, along with like Zappa, that actually get kind of like artistic respect in a sense, you know, because a lot of interesting discussion is had about the Mollusk. Because a lot of people say none of this album should be taken seriously, even the parts that feel like they should be. They're clearly still caught up in this strange fantasy world that Ween have created, and that some people don't like this album because they feel like totally emotionally detached from it, because Ween create this kind of fantasy barrier between like regular music and like, you know, the consumer. Obviously, I don't feel that way at all, but there's just that element of their music always being very. I don't really like comedy, because to me, none of this album is comedy to me. Like, it's like, at the most, it's just kind of silly and surreal. But I don't think they were ever shooting for
to make you laugh or something.
Make you laugh, yeah, exactly. Like Zappa, sometimes he's clearly shooting to make you laugh. You know, I don't know. I think maybe sarcastic rock maybe might be a better term.
Surreal was a really good way of describing this whole
surreal
album.
Yeah, for sure, surreal.
But in terms of this track specifically, man, it's that flute and the guitar. The flute in this track is just so nice. Like, the first time I ever heard it, I was like,
is
oh
it a
my
flute?
God.
I don't know what it is. It might be, but I've been listening to this album for a long time and constantly debating what that noise is.
I don't think it's a flute.
I really love that sound.
Yeah,
it's like
just
such an
it is really
sound.
nice, yeah.
But I have no idea what it is. It might be it sounds kind of woodwindy, maybe. It's definitely got effects on it, which makes it harder to figure out what exactly it is.
And that just kind of adds to the surrealness of the track.
Yeah, it sounds very watery. Which I guess goes with a lot of the theme of the album.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of watery elements. One thing I really love about this song is the story in this song. And, you know, I've said in past videos that I'm not someone who, like, the lyrics really make or break. But here, it definitely hugely enhances my experience.
The lyrics are so strange.
Yeah, they are really strange. And in this song in particular, I don't know, it's like, it's weird, but it's so potent. Like, it's so much more potent than what most lyrics give me in terms of what I'm imagining in my head. Like, the images in my head when I listen to this song, it's such like a clear story in a sense. And I just love that. I love how vivid it feels when I listen to this song. And, you know, and then you get the second part of this song when it goes into the spoken word. And obviously that gets into a very story-timey vibe.
It's just such a weird vibe. So strange, but I do really like this song. Not a highlight, but I like it a lot.
Yeah.
First song that I would consider a highlight is Johnny on the Spot.
That's definitely a huge highlight for me as well.
I really like that song.
I think what's really interesting about the song is how super compressed the guitars and drums sound.
The drums don't sound real.
Yeah, I know they don't.
It sounds like when you know, like on a keyboard when it's like a demo beat for you to play along to. It sounds like a Weird Al song.
Right, legit, just a drum machine sound.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a real drum kit.
It creates this kind of really unique, like, thin sound in a way. Not like a bad way when I say thin.
I know what you mean. It's just like super, like, one-dimensional sound.
Yeah, and it feels like, again, it kind of gives me this vibe where it's like, it's being, like, submerged, or it's being, like, the depth is being, like, drowned in a sense. Like, I don't know, it always gives me that vibe.
Yeah, like, at first, like, when it kicks in and it starts with the snare, just that da-da-da-da-da. Like, I didn't think I was going to like it. I thought it was going to be really, like, just silly and just weird again.
Yeah, it's just kind of deadpan. That's what I...
But then when it comes in with the main melody and the vocals and everything, it's just so simple, but it's so addictive.
Yeah.
I just really enjoy how straightforward. It's, like, weirdly, like, rock and roll-y.
Yeah, it's very rock and roll kind of vibe.
With like a weird squelchy synth solo in it as well.
But it's like a sped up blues. It's like a sped up blues melody. You know, I love the solo in this. There's really nice guitar work all over this album, and he's a great guitarist. And the solo in this is probably one of the highlights of his of his guitar work for sure.
I like this track, but it wasn't a highlight for me. For me, like, you had this string of three really strong songs before it, and then this kind of it didn't almost fit the mold that I thought they'd created, but I still like it.
Okay, so Polka Dot Tail was a highlight for you then?
Not a highlight, but I liked Polka Dot Tail.
Okay, yeah.
For me personally, it is nowhere near a favourite.
I love Polka Dot Tail as well.
Would you consider Polka Dot Tail a highlight?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I've struggled to find a song that isn't a highlight on this album. So it's a pretty pointless question to ask me that. There's like one song I wouldn't consider a highlight on this album.
Okay.
But yeah, I really love Polka Dot Tail. Again, it's one of the most surreal. It's such that underwater vibe. You know, did you ever see a whale with a polka dot tail?
Mate, the have you ever tried to shrink like an ice cube in the sink is like one of my favourite lyrics ever, I think.
I do really love that lyric.
It just sounds so dumb to me.
What?
It just sounds...
The vibe is just like stupid sounding.
I don't know what you mean by stupid.
It just sounds like parody music and it like...
I don't understand where you're getting... Like, this to me sounded like... if you took the Beatles from like the Revolver era and like they just ended up getting even more fucked, but like time travel to the 90s. Like this,
there's definitely
this
a
to me,
psychedelic element. Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. This song definitely doesn't sound as much like a parody as some of the songs, but
to me, it feels like. I mean, I think there's always a parody element with them, but I don't think it's parody. I don't think it's the right because I don't think they're trying to. They're not. I don't think they're using this song to take the mick out of some.
No,
songs.
maybe not parody. But
I feel like to me, it's just like this album, because it feels like a theatre play, there are always moments in the play where it's just fun or where it's a happy moment or stuff like that. Right, yeah, exactly. There's these campy fun moments. And to me, this is just one of the more fun moments, one of the more playful moments. Even though the lyrics
campiness just really puts me off.
Right.
And just like, when it's just... like this,
you have a very kind of specific happy vibe that you can get into, and like anything that slightly diverges from that, I think you just kind of like, no, I can't. This is just too twee almost, I think, for you.
I don't like twee. I don't like campy. I don't like silly.
I think it's not really off-putting for me, but it's definitely not something I gravitate to. It's something that I'm not really into. I think the major exception for the twee moments on this album is the surrealness of the whole experience, the kind of layer of psychedelia, especially in the lyrics.
Yeah,
and I just really like the element of voices, and I don't know what it is about the way they do fun, but it still always feels a bit not serious. It still always feels a bit
intelligent, like it's been thought about.
Yeah. Again, it's that whole theatrical element. It feels, it's not just, it still feels highbrow in a sense. I don't know how to explain it really.
Yeah, despite the campiness, I don't hate the song.
Yeah.
And it's got the weird bits when it all kind of just slows down, and then he's just like, Billy. And then it goes back into it. And then the next time it's Help Me.
Yeah.
It's just like, what the fuck is this song even about, man?
But shout outs to the solo in this song, because this has a really nice solo in it as well.
Yeah. But really super reverby, gainy.
Yeah.
So, I was talking about this album having like 3 strong tracks, and then I'll Be Your Johnny on the Spot being like a slight falter in quality, but when it came to Mutilated Lips, that track is a highlight for me as well.
Yeah, highlight for me also.
That's odd, because Mutilated Lips is silly as well.
I don't think it's silly. I think
the verses are amazing.
I think it's... I talked about this with Polka Dot Tail. This kind of Beatles Revolver psychedelia style just gone full whack. Like, I feel like I'm tripping while listening to this song. I agree with you. I just find it strange because Mutilated Lips to me is the exact same vibe as Polka Dot Tail.
I disagree.
Like, it's how can you think it's not on the sillier side of the album? I don't get it.
I don't think so. I just think it's just. I don't think it's funny. I think it's strange.
I don't think it's funny. I'm talking about the same side of the album as Polka Dot Tail, as opposed to the side of the album like Cold Blows the Wind, and It's Gonna Be All Right.
Yeah, it's on the trippy weird side. But like it's got very different vibes to Polka Dot Tail for me.
It doesn't have the bounciness
Doesn't have that like bouncy, like weird deep voice that he has on a lot of the songs.
The voice in the chorus in this is one of the weirdest voices.
Yeah, it is. It is. The chorus is my least favorite part of the song.
Oh, I can't.
I love the chorus.
The chorus is so good.
I know.
Oh, yeah, I like the chorus, but the verses blow it away for me.
Okay, fine.
I don't agree, but fair enough.
The high pitched synth that comes in the second verse is so great.
Yeah, I do really love that.
So great.
Yeah.
I like the lyrics as well in this.
Yeah, the lyrics all over this are just amazing. There's never a point in this album where the lyrics don't totally like pull me in and intrigue me. Like they're so weird and they're so like unique, and they have this whole like sea underwater vibe, and I don't know. I just love the lyrics on this album.
And on this track, again, we talked about it, referring to other solos. The guitar on this track as well, the acoustic and the electric, is so good.
A really soulful, clean solo, really nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'd say I only have like 3 more songs I'd consider highlights.
Okay.
2 definitely highlights. One of them's like a half highlight. The half highlight comes next, so I'll talk about that. It's Gonna Be Alright.
Yeah.
Alright.
I like that song a lot.
It's Gonna Be Alright is like, I say every song is a highlight. It's Gonna Be Alright is like the only one that I would question as a highlight, maybe. But it's one of 2 that I would question as a highlight, just because it is there is no surrealness at all. It's very like straightforward lyrics, and it kind of just doesn't fit in a way. Like it has like the nice watery effects on the vocals, which again, is the whole aquatic vibe and all that stuff.
Yeah, like I don't have much to say about it personally.
Yeah,
I just like it. I thought
the melodies were sweet. And
they're nice, they're tender, and
the kind of perspective, narratively speaking, is nice. This guy is just going to leave a relationship for the sake of the other person, and I like that we don't get that kind of resolved thing. And the lyrics themselves continue that kind of sea, watery vibe with like, seeing through the mist, etc.
Yeah, but it's so faint compared to every other song on this album that it's just overtly surreal.
I wish he would sing like this more.
I don't.
Because he doesn't sound stupid.
One of the biggest highlights of this album is, to me, the diversity of the voices. So I don't think I would have liked this album anywhere near as much if it had one monotone voice throughout the whole thing.
Maybe I wouldn't either, but
it just wouldn't have interested me as much, I guess, as well.
It just adds to that dumb silliness that puts me off. But it doesn't put me off, though, because I do really like the album.
I guess, like, in terms of the more straightforward tracks, I feel like Cold Blows the Wind is the best kind of straightforward track on the album.
It is my favourite song on the album.
It's incredible. But it's quite surreal because it's about a guy who comes back from the dead, and it's suddenly we're in like medieval times.
Yeah, instrumentally, you get this kind of standard ballad almost, but then it gets elevated by the quality of this weird narrative, and the lyrics themselves are really well written. I love
the lyrics.
The lyrics are incredible in this song.
Yeah.
I was reading up about this song at work today.
Okay.
It's a reworked version of like a centuries old poem.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Right, okay.
It was like written like by like someone anonymous in like the 1400s or some shit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's the lyric. They've changed the lyrics a bit, but it's basically the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and like it's just so great, man.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about a guy. I think originally it was about a guy talking to the ghost of his lover.
Right.
And that's what it is in this song as well. But like the other way around, I think it's a girl talking to a guy at first.
Yeah.
But then then it switches sides.
Yeah. Yeah. But I like the image of, because he talks about how like the guy went off to war and died in some battle, and she's like mourning at his grave, and then he comes back and he's like, I just came back for a kiss, and then I'll go back to my grave. Just a really like
very sweet
story, but like in such a cryptic way, it makes me so interested. If it was about some guy who like WhatsApped some girl like, yo, I regret this, then it wouldn't have the same kind of potency, as like this really weird metaphorical story.
It's so good. The way he like sits by, well, in the original, he like sits by her grave for like 12 months and 1 day, as it is in this song.
Yeah.
And then her ghost comes out and he begs it for a kiss, and she's like, I can't kiss you because then you'll die.
Right, okay.
And that's basically what happens in this as well. It's just like, I feel like it's less obvious. They've changed it.
Instrumentally speaking, I really love the synth and keys that get introduced later on in the track. On top of the kind of standard ballad of the voice and the guitar.
Yeah.
Just the instrumental like blemishes on this track really elevate what, you know, the lyrics and narrative are already strong, but then you get these kind of weird sounding keys and synths which just intensify that vibe.
Yeah, it's this warping synth that somehow still fits in with the rest of the instrumental, though. Like, it fits in with that, you know, that kind of just simple ballady kind of instrumental. And the dual layered vocals, like the two pitches at once. It's just so great. It's like maybe like the least silly moment on the album.
I think It's Gonna Be Alright is still a bit, just because it doesn't have because It's Gonna Be Alright doesn't have any surrealness.
But I feel like that might be more of a parody of a certain style of music than this is.
Maybe, but I just like.
I feel like this is.
It doesn't feel that cynical, like, as to be like a parody of like romantic music in a sense. Like, I don't get where really people draw the cynicalness of that. Like, I don't know, maybe, but It's Gonna Be Alright still feels like the least. Like, it almost feels a little. I always felt a tiny bit out of place, but I still really like it.
I can't help but feel like they wouldn't actually write lyrics like, it's hard for me to sing this song seriously. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they're kind of just playing on the conventions of like a cheesy love song.
Yeah, I think they're definitely playing on it, and I think it's definitely important that it's surrounded by the context of the album, as opposed to just like a one song. Like, I think the fact it's like surrounded by the context of the album highlights the kind of odd plainness of it in a sense.
Yeah. But Cold Blows the Wind, fucking huge banger. Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. I keep coming back to it.
So you keep talking about how you don't like the sillier elements on this album. So the next,
wait. Before we go there, I have to bring us back, because although I said pretty much every song's a highlight, I do have my super highlights.
Okay, go on.
One of them obviously is the Mollusk, but there's another super highlight that we didn't pick up on, so I have to bring us back.
Yeah, that's fine.
To the Golden Eel, because the Golden Eel is like a super duper highlight for me.
I don't agree.
As well as the Mollusk.
I also do not agree. Personally.
I love the Golden Eel so much.
Go on, sing
I love the grand adventurousness of this one. Like, it's probably one of the most grand adventure feels. But I feel like the epicness of the chorus still manages to pack this kind of emotional weight, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
Has a really great solo as well. And there's a really cool like electricity in the way his voice is mixed here, which is also really cool, obviously, because it's about an eel. So, that's just the kind of thing that I like realized after having listened to it for a long time. It was like, oh yeah, like kind of staticky mix, and obviously it's about an eel, and that's just the kind of weird, quirky thing I can definitely imagine them actually thinking about and doing. This is definitely one of my super highlights.
Yeah, there's a bit after the second chorus that I really like. It's like kind of like a little solo when it's got
there's a great solo on here,
and then it goes into like two guitars like doubling up and playing one part at once. That's my favorite part of that song. I wouldn't call it a highlight, but I definitely like it a lot more than the dumb parts of the album. Like, I don't have a single highlight, a single low light even. It's just,
neither do I.
It's just the general dumbness that I don't like.
And see, for me with this track, again, I don't have any lowlights, but it came across as one of the more straightforward ones. Not as straightforward as It's Gonna Be Alright, but there wasn't enough here that really kind of drew me into the imagery or the atmosphere on this track.
The more straightforward lyrically? That's insane.
I didn't say lyrically.
You just said about the words?
No, I didn't.
So what do you mean drew you into the track?
So what I'm saying is that there wasn't enough here on this track that drew me into this kind of imagery or atmosphere. It just felt quite straightforward in a way. And
so
like
what could...
the
But
only...
I don't get what could draw you into the imagery other than the lyrics. Surely you'll talk about the lyrics if you talk about imagery.
Well, we were talking about how the watery instrumentation in a lot of these tracks kind of enhances the imagery, and referring back to Cold Blows the Wind, the just kind of weird sounding synths, etc., that highlighted the kind of weirdness of that narrative. There just wasn't enough of that on here for me. Like, I didn't really think of the Golden Eel as like this all powerful thing. Like, that, you know, you get a bit of an explosive jolt in the instrumentation with the chorus, but there just wasn't that much meat on the bones for me on this track. It just kind of passed me by.
I think in terms of the eel being the all-powerful thing, that is kind of the tongue-in-cheek element of this. You know, the whole big chorus, I cannot reveal the words of the golden eel. It's like, well, what the fuck is he on about? Like, obviously that doesn't... There's no... It's supposed to just be like a lot of the lyrics on this album, you know, there's surreal just as kind of like for the sake of being surreal in a sense, which is something I really like. A lot of it doesn't have deeper meaning, in my opinion. It's just like, what does I cannot reveal the words of what the fuck's the golden eel? You know, it's and you get that vibe a lot, you know, in Mutilated Lips as well. It's like, well, when you look at the lyrics, what the fuck are they actually talking about? It's pretty much impossible to say, you know, and that's just one of the many elements that I love about the lyrics in here, is that it's kind of a pure embrace of the surreal in a sense. But it's more about the potency of what I see in my head when I listen to the songs, rather than the kind of deeper content meaning of what the songs kind of offer, which I really like.
Yeah. So you were talking about, Joe, that you really don't like the cilia. I'm not going to call it stupid or dumb as you've referred to.
Those are pejoratives.
Yeah.
Quite leading words.
I'm going to say the cilia. Yeah. The cilia elements of this album. So after you had such a highlight as Cold Blows the Wind, I really need to know how you felt about the next two tracks.
Pink Eye on My Leg is the dumbest song ever.
I
love Pink Eye.
I don't consider it a highlight, but I really like Pink Eye on My Leg.
It's so dumb.
I love how ridiculous this synth is. It is so mesmerizing. I can listen to this song for so long.
Like,
it's just so funny.
I thought it was just going to be like a kind of standard instrumental break, and then that fucking dog comes in.
The dog, that is the best use of dog.
Literally.
It's a better use of dog than Floyd.
Yes, it is. It is.
It is a better use of dog.
And then you get that.
This is, to be fair,
as well.
To be fair, Pink Eye on My Leg is what usually considered the worst song on the album. You know, like in general conversations, this is usually the song people hold up as the least favourable song on the album.
It's 3 minutes and 12 seconds
and
long.
It's great. Like, it's not the worst song on the album.
For it to be that long is more hilarious than anything else to me.
It is funny that they made it 3 minutes.
It's
a very strange experience, and I understand why it's considered generally the worst song on the album. I understand that. Going into Waving My Dick in the Wind, because there's so much interesting story about this song for me personally, right? Cool. Because so obviously I found this album out I found it out a while ago, you know, when I was first getting into the whole internet music nerd culture scene. And for me, when I first listened to this album, I always used to say, like, I felt like this album would have been perfect 10 if it wasn't for Waving My Dick in the Wind, because I could never get on board with it. But then I found out that people really loved this song. Like, a lot of people consider this like one of the better songs on the album, which really surprised me, because I couldn't really get my head around why this was considered a favorable song on the album. When to me, when I first listened to it, it felt so obviously like the weakest song. And I guess, you know, after this album was kind of molded me over the last year, I've kind of I've kind of got it in a sense. It's still not a favorite. It's still probably my least favorite song on the album. But I get, again, when I was talking about the theatre, the way this album is structured is almost theatrical. I understand that kind of silly fun bit that kind of precedes a really serious part of the narrative, you know, to kind of lighten the mood. That happens
before
a
they
lot
bring you back down. Yeah,
that happens a lot in plays and shit, you know. And Buckingham Green is that kind of grand, climactic, like serious part of the story. And Cold Blows the Wind is a very serious part of the story. And like to bridge that, you have this more fun, light-hearted part of the story.
Buckingham Green, right, is easily one of the best tracks on the album.
But yeah, okay, so Buckingham Green, again, just a little kind of thing. This last run of 3 songs is kind of like people. A lot of people talk about this as like quite a famous last run of 3 songs. Like a lot of people really fucking love these last 3 songs on the album. And Buckingham Green, is definitely also one of my highlights. I really like the soft guitar plucked interlude bit in it. It's really like delicate and nice. I love the main psych rocky, almost alt rocky guitar lick in the background.
Yeah, I like the interplay between the 2 sounds. Absolutely.
And really epic endpoint. You know, you get maybe the first time you get a really orchestral body of sounds.
So it was the first time that I thought I'd heard kind of choir-esque vocals that really just play up the kind of epicness of this scene.
And orchestra sounding as well.
Yeah.
Sounds like there's like big grand
strings.
drums and strings.
Yeah.
No, for me it's also a massive highlight.
Fades out with a very large orchestral sound as well.
To me, it sounds kind of like a Peter Gabriel song.
Interesting.
I kind of get
that.
It's like you know, like the way his vocals, they've got like that kind of like radio quality to them, where it sounds all kind of like just like lo-fi, and like it just seems like he's putting on British mannerisms in this song.
Okay,
like he's trying to sound British, and it's like there's a British subject as well.
Yeah.
Buckingham summon the Queen.
Yeah.
Like there's a weird Britishness to this song, I feel, and I feel like he is kind of channeling his own inner Peter Gabriel in a way.
I think you've kind of revealed to me why I got this impression of this track, and it might seem a bit odd, but this track reminded me of Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds. If War of the Worlds wasn't nearly as like you know, we talked about this kind of musical aspect, and War of the Worlds is a musical take on the old book of the same name, but this felt less camp and kind of, but there was still a campness about it, if you know what I mean. It wasn't to that extremity that it is in War of the Worlds, which is just because of its time. This felt like a more intellectual campness. It's mixed with this kind of epic backdrop as well.
I think I kind of know what you mean.
Yeah.
Like I just really like the vibe. Like it's almost like it sounds almost moody and maybe a bit even grungy in parts. When it drops into like the first solo-y thing between the and it's all massive. Easy for me to call this a highlight because it just doesn't sound dumb at all.
And now we come to
the track. This is another one of my super highlights, so I guess I'll intro into this.
Go on.
So yeah, I mean, this is kind of their defining song as a band, even before. Like, I mean, so there was like a meme craze of it over the last year, and before that it was like used in the SpongeBob movie. But I mean, when you think about it, this song is 20 years old, and it's always been like their defining song before all this started. It is the most commonly talked about as the best song on the album, and I think the reason why is just because of how like insanely catchy it is.
Absolutely. The vocal melodies on this thing are like virally infectious.
Yeah. And I think the reason why it became a meme was because of how catchy it was. Like, I think that is the kind of genesis of why that ever happened, because it's like, I don't understand how they wrote this vocal melody especially with such weird lyrics. I love the lyric Sequence of a life form braced in the sand.
Yeah,
I love that lyric, and I love the imagery of this kind of thing that's like half man, half like sea creature, like kind of emerging, and like it feels like evolutionary in a sense, you know, like early beings and shit. And I don't know, it's really weird. It's a really weird song, but it's structured to be so like poppy in a sense.
Yeah, this is probably the most poppy track on the album.
And again, it's in that kind of theater. This is that song that at the end of a play or at the end of a Disney film, everyone remembers this song because it was the big end song.
Well, yeah, like it's synonymous with the SpongeBob film for me.
Yeah.
And it is that just big, like, happy closer of the film or whatever.
But then it's just weird because even though there's a happy vibe to it, there's nothing happy about the lyrics. They're just bizarre and like just weird. They're just really weird.
The power of major key, man.
Yeah,
I can't say I'm huge on this track personally.
Get out.
This was the first track I'd heard from Ween.
Yeah.
As part of the meme. And the vocals again really are just off-putting.
Wash it, man.
It's like he doesn't even do it live. Like, why did they make the choice to make it sound so deep and weird and stupid?
Stop using stupid.
But that's how it feels to me. Like it's like this sounds synonymous with the word stupid for me.
It's like the opposite of stupid, though. Like stupid implies like barely any thought went into it.
Right, stupid in terms of these vibes, right? You want to look at like Blink-182 or some shit. That's just immature, stupid shit.
Stupid music is music that was made with like little to no thought, and that is obviously not.
That isn't what I mean. No,
exactly.
I just mean it just sounds dumb, man.
Dumb's a bit of a better word.
It sounds like joke music, but I feel like that's kind of what they're going for.
Yeah,
also.
absolutely. Yeah,
it's they're having fun, yeah. But I mean, it's not when you look at the lyrics, it's not really parodying anything. They're just interested in exploring these really weird, fantastical images and stuff.
I don't care why they did it. Really, I just wish they hadn't.
I just mean all over the album, you know, like. The lyrics they're all just seem intrigued in exploring weird fantasy ideas that they kind of just came up with, you know, whether it was through maybe it was through drugs, I don't know, like that's a common.
There has to be drugs.
Mate, Mutilated Lips is clearly like drug induced. Clearly. It
could be. Some people really do just have crazy imaginations, but it could also be drug induced. I don't know
He looks like a smackhead.
I don't know the session. I don't know the details of the session of this album. But it could be totally drugged up. But yeah, I mean, it's just that kind of really off the wall imagination that I really love about this album. And I think Ocean Man is, to me, that it's the most telling moment of that kind of really strange imagination in a sense.
And then it's interesting that we get a track like She Wanted to Leave as the closer then.
Yeah, I feel like that's like credits roll kind of song. That kind of, you know after, you know, the final bit, and it's like a slow song, or like a sad, not a sad song, but like a wrap up song, you know.
No, this
is not
a
wrap up,
definitely
but it's like
a sad song, I think.
Yeah, it's a sad song. Yeah, it's kind of a soft moment for the final thing, I guess.
Like we haven't talked about the Blarney Stone, but this is the other sea shanty-esque track on this album, and I really prefer this one because I feel like there's more to it other than just being a kind of straight sea shanty. Personally,
I'm not huge on either of them personally.
It's hard to call which one I prefer.
The way he sings "You Wanted to Leave" sounds like how they sing in South Park songs.
I know what you mean, but
I can't even think what you mean.
No, I know what you mean.
What song? There isn't
like
even
all of them. The voice that they use when they sing in like Team America songs or South Park songs. It's that the voice gives me those vibes.
But I like the synths in this. I like the narrative. But yeah, it's a good album closer. But I feel like it's odd that they chose to end on such a kind of sad note, considering how just weird and wacky the rest of the album has been. Like, you do get the reprise of the opening track, but kind of warped. But I don't think that really carries the vibe of the album and culminates the album in as effective a way.
I think it's just to me again, it's that the last reprise is the perfect end to the theatre of the album. You know, just the idea of reprising the first song feels like something that is done a lot, you know, and it's just done, like you say, a bit slower, more seriously. In terms of She Wanted to Leave as the album closer, again, it kind of feels, like I said before, like that credits roll kind of moment. It's also, I don't know, I really love the song as well. There is a kind of subtle fun that's being had still with this song, you know, it's about pirates and it's a kind of crazy story, you know, like it's not just like a sad boy's story, like, you know, it's like, you know, he's like, his woman's been taken. It's kind of, you know, it's a bit more strange. There's a bit of tongue in cheek in the story as well. I think, you know, the whole fetch a bottle of rum and all that stuff, you know. So I still think it very much holds the vibe of the album here.
I'm surprised we haven't said pantomime to describe a lot of this, because if you're gonna have a track like the Blarney Stone and She Wanted to Leave, like, you specifically kind of, there's a communal feel to both of those songs, and while you could argue that it's specifically targeting the characters within that narrative, there is that also that collective feel with the audience as well to make it a bit pantomime. And pantomime in itself is camp, so I feel like that fits well within this album in terms of a descriptor.
I think you could say this album, in a sense, plays with breaking the fourth wall. Yeah, and I'd say like maybe this song is an example in a sense. I don't know, maybe.
For me, it's might be a low light.
Okay.
Personally, like, even though it is more serious, you'd expect me to like it more than like the silly sounding tracks, but I don't. This song is just like one of the lowest impact songs on the album for me.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, I'm not big on the lyrics really. Like, I'm not big on how he sings it. Instrumental, I didn't think it was that memorable compared to a lot of the album. Like, I don't know, I just don't have much to say about it really.
That kind of segues us nicely. I've said I don't have any lowlights, so I will talk about whatever other song is brought up. So do you have any other lowlights that you want to talk about? Or Shakeel, do you have any lowlights that you want to talk about?
As I said, the only thing that's close to a lowlight to me is probably Waving My Dick in the Wind. Just because, I mean, one of the big reasons is because I hate the word dick, as in any kind of context other than, you know, like a dumb joke,
right?
Like
fucking dickhead.
That's the only context in which I can imagine ever that word being
waving
used
my dick in the wind
with you know, just in any context. So like it's definitely that is just a little barrier, I guess. Like, I think if it was called Waving My Arms in the Wind, I probably would have liked it sufficiently more, like, genuinely. If that's what the song was about.
Waving my penis in the wind.
No, like it's the imagery as well. It's like
dong.
It is very absurd.
It's impossible to not be comical, and there's no other part of this album where the lyrics force you to kind of be taken into that kind of comical world.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
And this part is like, well, I can't think of that and not be like, obviously that's supposed to be comical. Whether you find it funny or not, that image is supposed to be a comical image.
To me, this song has a kind of Weezer feel to it. It has those super fake sounding drums again going really fast, and like this super like fast like strummed guitar, like and like the bit when he's like telling Jimmy to dance. I don't know. I thought it was just kind of funny and like almost juvenile sounding, kind of like Weezer.
This is definitely immature. This track.
I think the Jimmy to Dance thing, it's got a kind of square dance vibe, I feel like.
Yeah.
With those fast guitars and the whole, you know, I'm doing the best I can, goddamn. Like,
I just thought it was kind of funny.
And calling him old Jimmy Wilson, like, it all feels so like, you know, square dancing and shit. I think the reason why people really like this song is because what I was talking about at the very beginning of this review is this idea, this thing that people always debate about with Ween, which is that should they ever be taken seriously? Do they ever want to be taken seriously? Is their whole kind of music career just like sarcastic in a sense? There's always this debate going on, and I feel like for people who really buy into that whole Ween should not be taken seriously, this is like this is good evidence in a sense for that. The fact that this appears on an album that feels a little more serious for them is kind of a good evidence for that whole idea of they're kind of like a weird jokey thing, I guess. I think that's why a lot of people like it. I think people who really buy into that idea of Ween, this is very much something that would kind of confirm that, at least affirm that.
Like, this track has a real danger of falling into the same kind of quality of, like, the one that immediately springs to mind is Blink-182's I Want to Fuck a Dog in the Ass, which, like, is funny when you're 12 or something.
Yeah, it has that. See, the thing is, it has that element of
but
I can imagine
this like the joke and the lightheartedness of just like waving your dick in the wind. It doesn't get old because the song is so short. And like the actual track is so fast paced that you don't feel like the joke is being dragged out, and it's not the only kind of humorous element of this track. So like there isn't just one joke they're laying on you over and over.
I'm very happy they only said that line like twice in the song. Because if they'd keep coming back to that line, it would have been too much for me.
But I totally understand where you're coming from in terms of like you become very conscious that This track kind of takes you out a little bit of the atmosphere that the whole album is built up, because you are like, hang on, that was a bit funny and it doesn't quite fit into the grander thing that you're trying to build here.
It's so like, because, you know, and it's like, it's a good comparison when you talk about Blink-182's I Want to Fuck a Dog in the Ass, because it's that kind of edgy, dumb, like you say, 13-year-old comedy. It's the same kind of thing. And like, I know everyone knows that Ween are way too intelligent to actually be indulging in it in the same way Blink-182 were.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you know this is with at least like a layer of irony when they do this. And it's like, then it kind of revives that whole, it's trying to figure out the level of irony just with Ween as a band. I don't know. It's like, are they just an ironic band? Like it's just a really weird, like you say, it's a good thing you said. Like it takes you out and it makes you have to question like what's actually going on. Like like I'm confused. Why did you do that?
Yeah,
that's what I felt the first time I listened to it, and you know, I've kind of grown to accept it. Like I don't skip it when I listen to the album, you know, but I'm not really a song skipper person in albums anyway. I said it's going to be all right earlier. It's still probably scrape a highlight for me. You know, I still really, really like it. So, you know, I'd say the Blarney Stone, back when I first listened to it, used to be potentially a low light, but I've grown to really love it. And there's a reason. The reason for that is it makes me think, it makes me compare, it builds this comparison between, you know, like all those piratey folk metal-y bands like
I
Ailstorm,
legit have
like that.
this kind of thought trail written down.
But the thing is, the main thing is how much they distinguish themselves from those people, in my opinion, with this song. Because this is actually a sea shanty, right?
Absolutely,
this is actually pirate music. This is what pirates would do and sing on a pirate ship. It's not weird pirate folk worship.
It's
metal.
not a novelty. It's
right,
genuine.
exactly. Like this is what a sea shanty would sound like. Yeah. It's not like, and when like you get people like Ailstorm, when you get those pirate metal vibes, it feels like just a bunch of like fucking nerds who have got together and thought this was a sick idea, when in actuality it just sounds lame.
Like pirate metal, I think, has its place. Like if you are just gonna kind of just vibe or whatever, like with a drink or whatever, there's a place for it. But if you want to talk about what actually is more genuine to this idea of being pirates and writing pirate music, this track is closer to it than any kind of self-awareness about pirate metal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it gives me, again, It gives me the really vivid imagery. I can imagine like ale jugs like crashing together.
Yeah, it's definitely a drinking song, I feel.
Yeah. I think that was the point of shanties, I think, back in the day.
Pirate anthem.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It just doesn't sound like a bunch of nerds who thought it was a sick idea to make a band about pirates. It feels like a contribution to the overall atmosphere of the album, and it feels like a genuine attempt to replicate actual sea shanty type music, right? It's not a song like I come back to all the time. I'm like, man, I can't wait for the Blarney Stone this time round. I just like it. It's just a nice kind of breath of fresh air in a sense.
Yeah.
When I listen to the album.
Highlights: I'll Be Your Johnny on the Spot, Mutilated Lips, Cold Blows the Wind, and Buckingham Green.
Okay.
And lowlights: potentially She Wanted to Leave, and generally just the general dumbness, the silliness, the campiness, that awesome man, just that voice. I just can't take it seriously. It's just like, it just makes me not. It's not the kind of thing I want to hear when I sit down and put music on.
Fair enough.
But otherwise, sick album.
So for me, highlights: I'm Dancing in the Show Tonight, The Mollusk, Mutilated Lips, Cold Blows the Wind, Buckingham Green, and Ocean Man. There aren't any real lowlights on this album for me, but if I had to pick one, it would be it's going to be alright, just because it is that more straightforward track on the album and doesn't really have any kind of self-awareness or surrealness or just strangeness about it.
My highlights are everything except me and Waving My Dick in the Wind have a strange relationship. And I've been kind of battling with this song for like a year now, and I wouldn't call it a low light, but it'll probably never be a highlight. So yeah, it's just Waving My Dick in the Wind that I'd say is the only non-highlight. In terms of super highlights, it's The Mollusk, absolutely my number one song, but also my other super highlights would be The Golden Eel, Cold Blows the Wind, and Ocean Man. They're like my super duper highlights.
Score. I'm torn between pushing it a little bit higher. It's a difficult one for me to score because it's just such a bizarre album. And as a whole, I'm not sure how much I love it compared to how much I just love certain songs. I'll give it a good 7. Yeah, a high 7. And that's definitely not what I was expecting to give it coming into the song. Knowing Ocean Man and being confronted with the first song, I was like, mate, this is going to be like a strong 2. But no, I liked it a lot more than I expected.
Good. For me, I feel like I'm more into what this album offers in terms of silly vibes. So overall, this album is a strong 8 from me.
For me, strong 9 very easily. One of my all-time favorite albums. It would probably be in like my top 50 albums of all time. Very unique, and I just love the surrealness, and yeah, I pretty much love everything about it.
So how did our scores differ from what you thought we would initially react? Did they differ at all?
Scores and thoughts?
Yeah.
Not really. No. I think I pretty much.
You knew I was going to like this much.
Yeah, definitely. I thought you'd give it an 8 by the end, but a strong 7, I'll take that. But yeah, because you'd only listened to Ocean Man, I was like, he doesn't understand how different this album's going to be to Ocean Man. Yeah. This album is really diverse, so I knew that you didn't know what you were getting into after Ocean Man, in terms of like, you wouldn't be able to call the album based on Ocean Man. And I knew I could kind of guess the songs you were going to like. I guess the ones I didn't guess as much, I thought you'd like She Wanted to Leave more. I thought you'd like, I thought both of you would like The Golden Eel more. But maybe that's just my personal love of that song that kind of clouded my idea, yeah. I knew you'd love Cold Blows the Wind.
I fucking love that song, man.
I thought you'd like I'll Be Your Johnny on the Spot just because of that kind of rocky vibe. I thought you'd hate Waving My Dick in the Wind more.
No, I didn't hate it at all.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was interesting. In terms of Sam, nah, no real surprises, I guess. I didn't expect it's going to be all right, I guess, to be your low light. Just because, like, I don't know, I kind of thought of you as being someone who would like that kind of straightforward vibe. So yeah, I'd say pretty much what I expected. Thank you everybody for listening. What do you guys feel about Ween's The Mollusk? Do you really like it? Do you really not like it? Do you dig the silly vibes? Or are you all about that serious stuff? Please let us know in the comments below. Please also subscribe. Please also comment. And please tune in next week for Sam's pick, which will be Frank Zappa's Joe's Garage Act 1. So we will see you then. Goodbye.